So, little bit of background, I am from Spain, with family from Italy. This story is 100% true. Me, my dad and my brother are all three familiar with camping, nature etc. We don't get scared easily and we aren't really superstitious or whatever. Also, excuse me for any grammatical errors I might make in this, English is not my first language. Now the story. This happened in 2010 I believe. I was 8 years old then and we were on summer vacation in Italy, in the region of Tuscany, where some of our family is from. We, brother, dad, and me, were hiking in the country, far away from any towns or any other form of big civilization. We were not very familiar with this route though. All of a sudden, we stumble across what looks like an abandoned Tuscan farmhouse. Not very big though. We all look around and yell asking whether there was someone. It looked very abandoned, the door was missing, plants all growing over the place. Safe to say, no one lived there. So, since we love adventure, and it didn't seem like a bad plan to do with 2 children, we decide to take a look at the place. As we are going to enter the house, out of nowhere comes a barn owl flying out of the house. It was dark in there. So we had a quick scare but nothing too bad, it's just an owl right? Now we enter the house and we just find the typical stuff you would imagine to find when you're in an abandoned house. Cutlery and plates on the ground, a candle, some old paintings, nothing really valuable though. Now we see an old wooden ladder that leads up to a hole in the ceiling. It was not a very big hole, my father couldn't fit. To give you an idea, he is like 6 feet 2 inches, and so since I was the oldest of the 2 kids, I would go up and tell them what I saw upstairs. Now I went up the ladder and got in a room, where I could see barely because the windows were covered with wood boards. So I could make out some stuff by a few sun rays that would get in through the gaps. I could see graffiti signs, typical for an abandoned house right? And I saw another room, so I told my father and brother that I would advance to there and see what was up. As I opened the rotten wooden door, I immediately stood still. A disgusting, rotten smell penetrated my nose. I almost had to throw up. I wanted to know what caused this bad smell. Then, in the corner of the room I could make out a silhouette. I got closer to investigate what it could be and I could barely make out that it was the lifeless body of a dog, a big dog. And, spicy detail, the body was skinned. No fur, nothing. Just pure rotting flesh in the shape of a big dog. I don't remember how long I just stood there, frozen. But I woke up from my shock with the screams of my brother because apparently the barn owl had gotten back inside the house and it almost hit him. So my dad yelled at me to come back and I gladly obeyed. When I got back downstairs I told him what I had seen, and the look he gave me was that of a man who is scared to shit but doesn't want to admit it in order to not scare his young kids. He just got close to my ear and whispered to run. We ran out of that place and never got back or even close to the route leading to it. This happened almost a decade ago, back when I was a senior in college. I was living in a 1-bedroom apartment with my girlfriend, now fiancé, in Savannah, GA, a town known for being a paranormal hotspot. I was and am an atheist and don't really believe in the supernatural, but it's always been a fun topic to explore. However, I truly can't explain what happened that night. It was around midnight, I was in bed on my phone getting ready to pass out for the night. My girlfriend had gotten up to get a glass of water, and when she came back she was acting really strange. I could tell something was wrong and so I asked her, and she sheepishly said that something felt weird in the kitchen. I asked her to elaborate and she couldn't, just reiterated that something felt off and asked if I would check it out. I got up, thinking that she had probably just spooked herself and just needed someone to tell her it was fine. My apartment was laid out so that the bedroom led to the living room, which led to the kitchen. The entire apartment had rug on the floors, except the kitchen and bathroom which were tiled. As soon as I stepped from the living room rug to the kitchen tile, I was filled with the strangest feeling of dread. There was almost an electrical feeling shooting through my body. Immediately I was scared and got the distinct feeling that I should not be in the kitchen right now. I remember thinking that someone didn't want me in there. Being the science-based guy I am, I told myself that I was overreacting. Maybe it was the result of a static discharge from moving from rug to tile. I had never experienced that feeling before or after though, so I'm not really confident in that explanation. Anyway, in the moment I just kept telling myself that this is my kitchen, there's no one here and nothing to be afraid of. I decided I was going to walk to the cupboard, grab a glass, grab my Brita from the fridge, and pour myself a glass of water. I felt like I had to prove that nothing was wrong, if that makes sense. Well, every step I took deeper into the kitchen, the electrical feeling got stronger. Literally every step almost felt more painful than the last, and I could shake the feeling that I was not supposed to be here. I grabbed a glass, opened the fridge and was absolutely overwhelmed with the electrical sensation, like I had seriously pissed this thing off for not listening to its warning. I poured my glass of water and got the hell out of the kitchen as fast as I could. As soon as I hit the living room carpet, the electricity went away and the foreboding feeling started to recede. I went back to the bedroom, my girlfriend clearly waiting for me. She asked me if I felt it and I said yeah, there's something weird going on in the kitchen. She freaked out at this point and told me she was expecting me to say everything was fine and she was being crazy. We held each other close for the rest of the night and eventually fell asleep. The next morning, I went into the kitchen and everything seemed normal. I never experienced anything even close to that feeling again, and to this day I still like to chalk it up to some weird electrical phenomenon in an old Savannah duplex, but I don't know. I think I just don't want to believe that I experienced something unexplainable. If you've got a rational explanation for this, I'd love to hear it. So this happened nearly 8 years ago in fall of 2015 I believe. For backstory, me and my sister were at my uncle's house the night before. I remember eating into I got sick that night. My mom then took me and my sister to urgent care and found out that they both had the stomach bug and I didn't. When we came back from the doctors, my sister rushed up to her room and got into bed. Me and my mom were standing outside as she was putting oil in her truck. I decided to step into the house in front of the staircase and screen door, and that's when I heard a whisper. It wasn't just any whisper, in fact it was whispering my name. I thought it may have been my older sister whispering my name, but it wasn't her as she didn't reply when I called her name. I walked into the living room and that's when I heard the whisper coming from the basement. Instantly I felt uneasy. The air felt thick and my heart felt raced. I didn't want to go investigate, so I went back outside with my mom. Now almost 8 years later, I don't know to this day what was whispering my name from the basement, but I don't really want to find out. I would definitely say let's not meet. So it started when my son was about 5 years old. It was already night and he was playing in the living room down the hallway when all of a sudden he comes running scared, pointing towards the room and hallway saying he seen someone ugly and it scared him, so he sat on the couch and was just quiet. I went to the room and checked and he had said it had already left through the window, so I didn't think much of it. That same night I kept thinking, what did my son see? So I fell asleep on the opposite side of the bed close to the window. And I remember I was sleeping and I woke up. All of a sudden I looked up and I seen legs standing there. The legs were thick horse feet and goat feet, and I remember seeing a long tail like the panther's tail. It was so long and curled up. It was red in color, but like a deep red, like the colors of a fresh brick house. Very vivid color. I didn't see any further, only till his waist. I hurried up and covered my face, but I did tell it in my head to go away and leave us alone, that he was not welcomed here. So I finally had seen what my son's seen. Ever since I haven't seen him again. Hi everyone. So, this happened to me when I lived with a flatmate, and worked nights. This one night, I came back home around 2:30 a.m., and since my flatmate worked as ground staff, and her shifts rotated every week. She was supposed to be home around 6:30 a.m. that morning. I had a private balcony, and because it was winter, I kept it closed or my room would be freezing. I lived in a place that can get 2 or 1 degree south during winter, but that's it, so there was never heating system in the house, but we had room heaters. It was odd that it was open since I remembered closing it before leaving for work, but chalked it off to my flatmate. I closed the open door to this balcony, turned off the light outside, and got into my usual routine of taking a bath and changing for bed. It was about 3 a.m. by then, and when I hit the pillow, I fell asleep immediately. Now this was out of the ordinary for me, since it always takes me a good hour to fall asleep once in bed. I didn't remember falling asleep either. I woke up about an hour later as I was really cold, and saw the door to the balcony was open again and the lights were back on. I remembered closing it and turning the lights off very clearly. From my bed, I had a diagonal view to the balcony, so I can see anyone who may be standing there. Just as I was about to get out of bed, I saw something move out of the shadows where I couldn't see, and into the light. It was me, and I climbed onto the steel railings. Once on top, she turned her neck to look back directly at me, and smiled a little too wide for human beings. She had too many teeth. Then she jumped off the balcony down into the fog. I was frozen, not that I couldn't move, but more like I was shell-shocked. I got up from bed shakily after a couple of minutes, freaked out of my mind, closed the door and turned off the lights outside again. Didn't sleep for the rest of that night. I still don't understand what I saw to this day, but it always inspires a chill down my back when I think back on it. I haven't seen her again since. When I was a teenager around 2004, we used to sneak down through a quiet area of scrub, over the dunes onto the beach to smoke weed. I lived in a very small, coastal town on the mid-north coast of New South Wales. Typical wildlife was possums, wallabies, and maybe the occasional kangaroo. Definitely no dingoes, crocs, or other apex predators around. One night as we quietly made our way down the path, we noticed a shuffling, rustling sound in the undergrowth near the path. We stopped moving, and the sound seemed to stop as well. There was absolutely zero light except from some houses in the distance and the moon. After a brief pause we decided to keep moving. We heard the rustling sound again and this time noticed some bushes moving. We stopped and my friend whispered, "Holy shit, did anyone else see the trees move?" I whispered back, "I only saw the bushes move." We stood there frozen for a few beats. In my head I was weighing up the option to either continue on the path or leg it back home. We took a few more steps forward when we heard the sound like leaves crunching underfoot. At this point I reached out and grabbed my friend's hand, thinking maybe we were being followed by someone. It was right then I noticed I could smell something awful. "What the fuck is that smell?" my mate whispered. His voice came out so small it frightened me even more. We stood there for so long, but probably only a minute or two, until we heard a low groan/growl sound coming from a few meters away. Now brush-tail possums are quite common to the area, and are known to make a kind of grunting/coughing sound heard here, but they are, from the ones I've ever heard, distinctly higher pitched and more chirpy sounding than what we heard. This was a low and more sonorous sound, kind of like with some strange catching tsch sounds at the end. Needless to say we wordlessly booked it straight back up the path the way we came. It sounded to me like a huge commotion of leaves crunching and branches shaking and crashing behind us as we ran, but reflecting on it with my adult hindsight, it definitely could have been us making all that noise. We never went back to that spot again, and would bring it up from time to time, trying to speculate what could have followed us that night. Our best theories were that it was just a bloody big possum or a person trying to scare us. The biggest issues we would argue over was why would a possum follow us, let alone down on the ground, although my mate says he saw the tree branches move as well, and if it was a person, how did they make that sound? And what was the smell? And why didn't we hear any footfall? Maybe it was just a coincidence of events? A person following us, a nearby possum growling, and a nearby dead animal stink wafting over at just the right moment. It still makes me shiver to think about it now. My childhood home was in a very rural area. So rural in fact, that it was situated right by a forest. And I don't mean a pitiful excuse of a forest that's basically a dozen trees in between two roads. The real ass wild. I loved exploring it, finding big bugs, a cool rock or even animal skulls. But, understandably, my mom wasn't too happy about her little girl going up into the woods by herself. My older brother would come along with me, and it didn't take long until we knew the nearby area like the back of our hand. But one day, we tried going in a new direction, and after a good 30 minutes of walking we came across a large pond. It was our best find yet. Over the years, we had plenty of friends over, spending entire days messing around the pond. We never encountered anything strange, nothing more than the occasional deer. We thought we'd conquered the woods. During our teens, my girlfriends and I would try to enjoy summer to its fullest. As crazy as it sounds, we often made the hike to the pond and then promptly undressed for the rest of the day. Swimming naked was way more comfortable, tan lines were avoided, and overall the vibe was very fun. Of course we made sure none of the guys in our friend group came, though a couple wieners bouncing around wouldn't have bothered me. My friends didn't share my opinion. Occasionally, we did get a peeing Tom or two, but they seemed like honest accidents since we never openly announced what we were going to be up to. And one day, as we were relaxing in the nude, we caught one of our male friends having an eyeful. We made him leave, no hard feelings. He didn't know we'd be there, and naked. We didn't blame him for taking a quick look, boys will be boys. Not too long after his departure though, we started feeling washed. Followed by a subtle but lingering smell, reminiscent of rotten eggs. Uncomfortable, two of the girls decided they wanted to leave. But upon reaching the area we'd left our clothes at, they were shocked to find some of them missing. That was too far. We started screaming for the little thief, looking for him in the tree line. Nothing. As we gathered our stuff to leave, the feeling of eyes on our bodies grew stronger and stronger, like we were standing naked in the middle of a crowd. We barely said a word, like we were waiting for a branch to crack and reveal the perv's location. But then shrieks erupted from some of my friends. I quickly understood why and joined them as I felt an invisible touch, which I can't quite describe without using inappropriate terms for this sub. We picked up what we could, mainly towels to cover ourselves, and we ran away. The icy touch only vanished once we were away from the pond, but that didn't slow our pace. We finally reached my house and didn't dare speak a word of what happened to my brother and mother, too embarrassed and worried we'd be called crazy. My friends borrowed some basic clothing and left. The following day, we confronted the friend we'd caught watching us. I'm very good at reading body language and facial expressions. He never showed any sign of dishonesty when he detailed how he didn't stick around after being discovered. Any possibility of a rational explanation, someone we could get angry at, was gone. I'll preface this by saying I am a religious person, but I always had my doubts about possession. I had always assumed these things only fell in two categories, mentally unwell or faking. Something happened a couple of days ago that had me questioning this lack of belief though. I like to think through logical explanations for things before I jump to conclusions though, so here I am. 2 days ago I was walking home from church carrying a small prayer book. This thing is a 3x5-inch nondescript item that could just as easily pass for Dickens or Harlequin. It certainly doesn't look like a Bible, and the words that were on the cover aren't visible. As I got closer to home I saw a man walking in the opposite direction toward me, mumbling gibberish to himself. I live in a big city and have been assaulted by a mentally unwell person some years ago, so now I'm in the habit of putting distance between myself and anyone who appears to be having an episode in public. He was still several meters away, certainly too far to even see any writing in my hand even if it was visible, when I started to cross the road. Then I heard him yell, "I'll throw that Bible in the toilet," and go right back to talking him nonsensical gibberish. It took me a second before it occurred to me what just happened. How did he know what I was holding? No, it's not a Bible exactly, but it does have a lot of Bible passages in it. But no one who hasn't examined it closely could tell that. And what of the crazy coincidence that those were the only coherent words he was able to muster? Just wanted to get this sub's thoughts on this encounter. TLDR, apparently mentally unwell person told me they'd throw my Bible in the toilet despite having no way of knowing I was holding a religious text.
Looking for something to meet your photonic need? Radlight has laser diodes, remote control drones with lasers mounted on them, USB chargeable laser pens, rechargeable lithium-ion batteries, high-powered lasers that can ignite matches, cat toys. Hell, if you got enough money, they'd probably sell you a Jewish space laser. Welcome to Radlight. Point with precision, present with confidence. Visit us at radlight.dev. Tell them the Atomic Shaman Sweat Lodge sent you.
Like, share and subscribe to the channel, and be sure to ring the notification bell. You can follow us on Twitter at Motel and RV Park. Catch the live streams on Rumble. Listen to text-to-speech stories on Atomic Shaman TTS on YouTube.